Hi, I'm going to show you how to set up your Jewel Loom. And I'm working with beads from the Creative Soul November 2024 box. And in today's project, we're going to be making a little gift pouch. You could either gift jewelry in it or, a coin or just any kind of little keepsake. And we're going to be using the beads, which are size 11 from the November box, and a button. And of course, your Jewel Loom. And you'll also need the thread spool that came with your kit. And so to get started, we're going to go ahead and put the bar into the Jewel Loom. When you open it, it comes with a separate bar like this. And go ahead and just insert one side and the other side. And to do this, you'll want to just gently reach like this with the Jewel Loom. Let me see if I can get under camera here. You want to just kind of gently move the bar into position. And what you'll get is this little curved shape. And that's what gives the warp threads their tension. So to get started, we're going to tie our thread to the upper corner of any of these knobs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And you can choose whichever one. You'll want to tie a double knot onto that knob. And 3. All right, and so that is working directly from your spool. You'll want to just go ahead and tie a double knot right onto that button. And then flip the loom over toward the back, and you will see there is a turning button on the back, and there's one on both the top and the bottom. So starting here at the top, this is the tail. We're going to take the long part, that's the part that's attached to our spool, and we're going to go around the back of the button. And then I'm going to grab one of the grooves that's kind of a little bit over to the side because my pattern is going to require 18 warp threads because it's a 17 bead row. So I'm going to start somewhere, right about there. And then just trying to match that. It doesn't actually need to be exact, but if you would like to kind of line it up top and bottom, feel free to kind of just eyeball that. And because we're using an 11-0 seed bead, we can work with every groove on the loom. So we're just going to fill in each one. So just like that. And after each trip through, up and down, you're going to need to go around the button on the back. And then catch the next groove as best you can. And string straight down to the next one. So I've got 3 warp threads so far. I need a total of 18 warp threads. So I'm just going to continue in the same fashion. Wrapping around the button, grabbing the next groove in the row on the little arm of it here, and then matching that here at the bottom, going around, grabbing the next one. So keep going like that for a total of 18. Alright, so I have a total of 18 warps now added to my loom. And after adding the 18th strand, I've gone around the button here at the back one additional time. And now I'm ready to tie it off. And since I have an even count number of warps, I've ended up on the same side as my starting knot, which is handy because we can use that tailed thread of the starting to finish off tying the current one. So from where you are, from the button, so we just went behind the button, go around the front of the button here on the side button here, and then just wrap it around once or twice. From here, hold it tightly and go ahead and trim the thread free from the spool. Leave yourself just enough tail to do a knot. Holding this tightly, grab the tail from when we started and just go ahead and tie a knot. That's probably the easiest way to get going. I just want to make sure I made that nice and tight. And I'm going to go ahead and just do one extra knot, just making sure Nice and strong finish there. Okay, double check that all of your threads made it strongly into the grooves, that there's none overlapping. And check that on both sides. With this many warp threads, it's a little bit, requires a little double checking. And so that's going to be about the size, the width of our little pouch. It can be a pendant necklace. It's a good size for a pendant, and it's going to be a really beautiful finished design. So before we can get started with our looming though, we're going to want to take out the bar, and that will make the tension of these threads super, super tight and really easy to loom with. So to do that, often what you'll see people refer to as the belly method. And so how that works is you just kind of take this side of the loom and just kind of press it against your stomach. So from where I'm sitting, it's just kind of hitting just above my stomach. And then I can use that as just a way to kind of put a little bit of pressure on this side. Not going to bend it, not putting too much pressure, just enough that I can free the bar. And it should come pretty naturally. And you can actually do a lifting motion with the bar and it'll just pop right up. And in my case, it went through my warps, but that is okay. Sometimes it does that. And what I'm going to do is just drop them right back down through it. There we go. All right, so now my bar is removed and I have as tight as guitar strings, ready to start my looming. All right, so this is how you start looming from your pattern. Go ahead and lay out the beads that you need from the pattern legend. And it helps if you list them or lay them out in order of A through E. And right now I just have 3 of the colors because that's what my first couple of rows needs. And just for simplicity, I don't have my others out yet, but I'll add them when I need them. And so I like to work from the bottom to the top. You can work either direction. So you can start looming from the top of your pattern down or bottom to up. It's actually totally up to you, which you think would work. But to get started, you're going to want to leave, well, first you're going to want to cut a length of beading thread that's comfortable for your hand. So for me, that's about 65 inches. So I unspool about 65 inches of beading thread. And then I'm going to just cut it free from the spool. And once I have that done, I need to thread on a beading needle and fold over enough of the thread that it makes it a comfortable working length for me. So I've done that, and this is a size 10 hard beading needle that I've got here. Okay, and so what you'll want to do is start by bringing your thread under the warps. So I'm just going to bring that under the warps. And then what you want to do is string on your row 1. And I went ahead and pre-strung that so you could see it finished. But so working from the bottom up in my case, that's my row 1, all the beads that I need to start. To get going, you want to leave about a 10-inch tail, 8 to 10 inches. And I like to bring my needle back through all those beads just as a stabilizer. So I'm not going to pull the needle through. I'm just going to work back through just to hold them in place while I position them under and in between my warp threads. And you want to try to get each warp thread to sit in between each bead. So just like that. And often it can really, really help if either use your thumbnail to kind of like press that and make sure everything's staying put. Or you could even take something like a bead scooper or a business card, something with some heft to it, and just press like that. What you're trying to do is make sure each of those threads is in between each bead and keeping sure that that edge one is on the outside on both sides. Once you're happy with that, go ahead and pull that needle out. But keep your finger there to hold everything in place. And what we need to do next is pass back through this row. And when we do that, we're going to have to make sure we don't puncture any of the warp threads with our needle. So the best way to do that is to go eye side first with your needle. So I'm going to go through the beads, keeping my needle above these warp threads. And I'm using the eye side just to prevent puncturing. So what you'll see happening is each bead, you kind of if you kind of press up against the needle, and it keeps the needle, you know, running against the wall at the top of the bead. And there we go. So I got that through. And go ahead and just pull that needle through. Just being careful not to get any knots over here. And it's okay to go slow with these long strands of thread. It can really help. So there's row 1. And if you have not punctured any of your threads, you'll be able to slide it into a position just a little further down on your loom. I find it easier to get started kind of toward the middle because it's just easier to get my hand under there during that starting step where you have to really support it. But once I got it going, I just slide the beads down. And if you work from about just in front of there's a little hole here where the bar was, I just kind of line up with just being right about in front of that. So let's pop on the beads for the next few rows and we'll do those rows together. And there we go, here's my next row. And this time, we don't need to bring the needle through it. It's all just gonna naturally just settle right next to where the thread was exiting on the other side of the row. And from here, just use your fingers to help those beads settle in between each warp thread. So just about like that. And again, you can use a bead scooper just to help press everything down. And again, I'm going to go back through the beads with the eye side of my needle and making sure to stay above each warp thread as I go back through. Sometimes with these really long pieces like this, you have to help it quite a lot by pressing up on the beads and down on the threads with your thumb and your finger. I do find it gets easier after a few rows. So there's my row 2. And again, I can still slide my work. Let's make sure. It's gotten a lot tighter, but it's still moving, and that's our goal. After this row, this third row we're gonna do, sliding it like this to test it won't be possible. I mean, it will be, but it would be really challenging. So from there on out, if you want to test a row, I'll show you an extra method for how to do that. But let's go ahead and string on row 3. All right, there's my third row. And let's go ahead and position that. These colors are so beautiful and festive looking. It's a really fun design. You'll notice how, like, pretty much at row 3, the effort required to get these beads to sit where you want them starts becoming easier. I probably don't even need to do this little pressing motion anymore. And again, I'm going to work with the eye side and pass back through all of those beads. There we go. Now, if you wanted to test this row to make sure you didn't puncture anything, you can slide it just individually. See how I was able to make that little space? And after you do that, just tighten it up a little bit again because you'll have loosened the thread a little. But that's really all there is to it. Looming is really nice and relaxing. And so keep going like this until you've completed the pattern. If you run out of thread, the only thing you need to do is restart a new row in exactly the same way that we started this one. And then just leave your old working thread in place for now at the last row where you left off. So all you have to do is just bring on a new one, leave the old one where it is, and we'll sort out how to weave that in at the end. All right, so once you've got your pattern done, and as you can see here, I ran to a spot right about there where I found I was adding thread. So you see, I just left the old working thread in place and started a new one just like we did the first one. And then last of my working thread here at the top. I'm just going to remove my needle. And first thing you'll want to do is get it off the loom. So just leave all of this in place for now. And actually what I'm going to do here really quick is just bring a little mat under it for some better visibility. And from the back here, find the side that you've got the knot tied to the edge button. This is the only spot where we're going to do a trim. We're going to cut just the spot here where we did the knots. So just going to remove those. And that will free edge tied off edges from the little button there. So I'm just going to free those from the loom here. And what you'll see on this side is one of those warp threads is free. I'd like to free all the others without cutting them. So if you have handy some chain nose pliers, I'm going to get some of those. And again, we're going to use that belly method, pressing one end of the loom just against yourself, very gently. Take a little of the pressure off the loom, and you can move these loops off of that button. And when you do that, the other end can be easily freed just by lifting that side as well. So here's what you'll have. A lot of warp threads. You still have your 4 working threads here on the side. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and pull in the warps. But before you start that step, go ahead and make sure that this is as you like it. And so I tend to like to flatten this a little bit. So what I mean is it's a little, since we had so much tension on the warps, made it nice and easy to do our looming. But now I'd like to free up some of that bounce back that it experienced when we took it off. So you see I'm just kind of gently rolling it and my fingers from the center out. And when you start to see space, you've got it. You don't need to add any more. And we'll just make sure it's even on both sides. And this is your chance to do this, because after we do the next steps, it's pretty much locked in. So make sure you're happy with like the flatness of it. So there's no puckering, right? It looks good on both sides. Okay, so identifying each of these little loops. Just make sure none of them are trapping each other. So what you'll want to do is just separate them. Just separate them out so that, see, each one is free from the others. And it might be a little tricky to do because they're all going to be just kind of snuggled there. You'll want to do this top and bottom. So those look pretty good there on the top. Just making sure they're free. You might have to, as we work, we might need to separate them again. They tend to bring their friends along when you pull them through. All right, so same thing on the bottom. And I'm going to start from one of the edges. One of the edges, I'm going to go ahead and just start pulling the warp thread in one direction. So let's see. Let's start with the bottom here. So this edge thread, if you'd like, you can grip it with your pliers, or you can just wrap it around your finger one time, just so you can hold on to it. And then again, holding on to the work here so that it does not move from how you like it, how you just adjusted everything. Go ahead and just pull this thread. And as you pull this thread, watch this thread up here. It should come right down, and the loop should settle just right on top of that edge bead there. So you should have a nice close connection at that spot. And from here on out, you're going to want to grab the opposite side that you pulled from before. So we just pulled from the bottom. So now we're going to move to the top and pull from here. And as we do that, the thread here on the bottom is going to move up. And I recommend doing that slowly for a couple of reasons. The threads tend to like kind of dance and curl a little bit. And so a quick motion tends to progress that. And if you go a little bit slower, you're less likely to propagate the little curly key thing. That can sometimes become a knot, but your goal is to just get that to sit just like that. So let's do another one together. And pull from this side, down from here. And each time you do this, they're going to get longer. And here's one that's bringing a friend. So see how this loop is pulling in some of the others? Best way to free them is to just go like that. And get that, make sure that loop is nice and free, see? And then let's just continue. And each one should move really freely. It should not be difficult to make this pull, especially in the short length we have here of a little over 3 inches. Meaning the length of the piece. But even on longer pieces like full-length bracelets, the pressure needed to pull these loops is pretty gentle. It's just getting a grip on the thread where the chain nose pliers is helping. And again, I've got another loop trying to crawl into that loop. So just freed those. All right. So I'm going to carry on doing what we've been doing. And when I get to the end, I'll turn the camera back on and we'll weave in the threads that we have left. So far, so good. The strand will start to get super, super long. So as you're working on it, notice that there's a lot to pull through. And so you'll just want to be very gentle when you're working that. But if you keep pulling just really gently on each strand, you will eventually get there. It just takes a long time. I just wanted to let you know that you're on the right track. It's just there's a long strand by the time you get to the end. All right, here's the last one. So I have a really big loop left here at the top, and I'm just going to pull that down by pulling this edge warp thread. And so both of my warps are actually going to end at the bottom. And the last pull will be from here. So pulling here and it'll come in from there. So as you can see, it's just going to be a long trip. Make sure you've got a clear work surface because things will tangle, and try to join your loop as you're pulling all of that through. And you can't cut it at this step. You'll have to let it go, pull through, and every time you see little tangles, just help it not tangle. And the secret really is to be going about this fast. See, I'm not going super, super fast. When you see stuff like that happening, just separate those loops. This is just basically that same strand of thread looping on itself as you work. So little things like that, you'll need to make these adjustments as you go. And here we go, just keep going. Almost there. All right, and go. Okay, so we took that down from what would have been 18 strands on each side, plus these 4 here, to 2 on one side. And we still have these 4 remaining ones. All right, so where we're going to go from here, we're going to weave in and then turn it into a little pouch and stitch a little button on it. And then maybe, it can become a lot of things. It can be an ornament. It can be a gift tag. It can also be a necklace. And it can be a keychain for like a purse charm. So I'm going to show you a way that you can turn into all those things, a way to make a chain. So that's where we're headed. But for now, let's start with how to weave in. So what you see here on my mat is 2 different kinds of threads. There's weft threads. Those are threads that are exiting from a bead. They're the ones we were using when we loomed. And then there's warp threads, and we only have 2 of those to worry about. They're both here on the bottom with this particular design. So let's start by weaving in our shorter warp thread. So I'm going to trim off, that was just the knot from when we tied it to the loom. And we will thread a needle onto this end. And I'm still working with the same needle that I used to loom the piece. So size 10 beading needle. All right, and so warp threads are the ones that aren't coming out of a bead. Remember, they're running either between or along the edge, in this case, of the beads. So you can't just go back through a bead, or the thread here is basically hugging this one through the bead. That's what's holding everything together. So because of that, you want to take your warp thread and go around the first bead and then head into the work through the second bead and go through like 2 or 3 beads at this spot. All right. And then what I like to do to weave in is I'll take the work and I'll just kind of bend it like this so I can see my weft threads inside the bead. And I'll just bring my needle under a few of the rows, just bringing them under the weft like that. And pull that through. And do all of this with gentle tension at this point. You don't want to warp your work. From here, just go through some beads, and it doesn't matter how many, 1, 2, 3. Try to end not on an edge. And we're just going to do that same thing again. And pick up just the top strand of weft that's running inside of those rows. Go underneath it. Again, without warping our work, gently pulling that through, and then head through some of the beads in the row you end up in. I like to do that at least 3 times, rolling the beads kind of in my fingers each time I do that. And this is just probably the easiest way to disappear a thread into your work. And it also gets the thread into different locations, meaning you're not trying to go through the same rows over and over again when you weave in. Often when I first started looming, I would weave in by just going through beads, and it really concentrates a lot going on here at the edges. So this is a method that saves you that. So that's why it's so preferred, at least in my estimation. So that, I feel like that's pretty good. So we'll go ahead and just trim that. And that is how you weave in a warp thread. So next I'm going to show you how to weave in a weft thread. Weft thread is exiting from a bead. It's the thread we were using to do the actual looming. And the one I'm threading onto a needle right now is the tail thread I left when I first started my project. And actually, it's technically, it's the remaining working thread what I ended. I believe this is the bottom here, the way I loomed it. It could be either or for you, depending on if you loomed from the top to the bottom and how you took it off your loom and things like that. But no matter which one you're exiting from, what you're looking for on the side of the piece is where is your warp thread. So for me, trying to get this nice and close for you to see, you can see my thread is exiting this side of the warp. The warp is this thread right here. So my goal is to jump over it with my working thread here, and then go through the bead on the other side of it. And sometimes it can help to just pull that in the other direction. And that way you know you've jumped over it. And then same thing as before, just go through a few beads. And what you should see happening here on the side is that thread should hug this one as you're coming through the bead. And if for some reason that doesn't work for you, this bead could fall off. So just make sure, double sure, that your thread is rainbowing over this thread as you come through the bead. And then from there, same thing we were doing before. Pick a spot where you can pick up at least 3 rows of the weft thread there, and then go through some rows. Go through some beads in the row you ended up in, and then repeat. So that's all you need to do to weave in what we have left of our threads. So go ahead and weave in any of the remaining thread additions you have. and leave yourself a strand or two to do the work. You'll probably have a super, super, super long strand on one side, which we'll end up trimming. We won't need all of it, and it'll be a little unwieldy to work with. But where we're going from here is we're going to be folding this into a little pouch. All right, so those two remaining working threads are all woven in, and just for now, I've left the two threads here. I've left the remaining, what was essentially, I guess, the tail from when I started it of the weft thread, and then here I've still got a super long warp thread. Haven't trimmed anything yet. I just wanted to show some of the planning and features of this design. So the way it's designed, it can be folded a couple of ways, depending on what part of the pattern you'd like to be the front of your pouch. And the cool thing is they line up in no matter which way you go. So you can either bring this side to meet the middle here and just line up the pattern. See how you can just get that to match just like that, right? And then you can have this part fold over and it kind of lines up with the bottom here. So that's one way you could do it. And that one overlaps a little more. So it's almost a full fold. And then there's the other way that you can take it, which is you can bring the longer side, just from here to here, to meet the pattern right there. And you just cover up the pattern below it that matches it, right? So there's that way. And that way gives you a little shorter fold over. That looks cool. It looks like that. So whichever way you want to fold it is actually totally fine. And there's little spots where you can see that it matches up, and whichever way you think looks cool, it's like a little clutch. So either that way, or you can bring this end to meet right there and go like that. So just whatever side you like. I think I like the look of this way, because it looks like a little flames or little ornaments. So like a little, I don't know, campfire maybe. So I'm going to go with that as my design, but I just wanted to share that you can do either way. All right, so depending on where you folded it and where your ending threads that you kept are left, you may have to weave to a location that works. In my case, I actually have one right in the right spot, just kind of by accident, but it's a shorter thread, so I think it's going to be enough. It's actually my tail thread exiting from here. And so what I want to do is I want to join these together on this side. So let me pop a needle on here, making sure that I exited on this side of the warp thread. Pick up two of these metallics, and I'm going to jump over to this one here and go through that bead. There we go. Heading up through that one, down through this one. Now I want to do one thing really quick before I keep going. I just want to reinforce this top part here. If that doesn't happen naturally from however you entered and exited the work, then go ahead and make sure that just that top part, just this top one, gets reinforced, and you'll end up kind of by default reinforcing the second one just to get where you need to be. And again, the exact thread path I'm doing is not the important part. The important part is just to get those two beads on the side. And there you go. So those two are right where we want them. Make a turn through the third one. I'm going to pick up two more. And again, we're jumping over, going through its corresponding bead on the next side. And from here on out, you can just go ahead and do this one pass connection here. So I'm going to carry on like that to the bottom. All right, so your thread will, depending on how you started and stopped and started your side making, you're probably going to end up on the bottom, but you could be on the top. But either way, you'll end up with a little pouch that looks like this on the inside, and you can go ahead and put things inside of it. And some with the transparent beads, it kind of glows in there. It's just really pretty. So lots of places you could take this idea. Could become a lot of things. All right, and so I went ahead and just from where my thread was, I went ahead and headed for the center of my pouch right here, the center star in the pattern, and I've got my thread exiting from that side. And so this, everything from here on is just pretty optional if you'd like to do the button, just a way to close it. And it closes pretty nicely on its own because it's a nice cover, but to put a little button on it, which is super cute, you want to make sure your thread's exiting from, let me go ahead and weave back one bead. I meant to exit from the center. So treat that center of the star there as kind of like the place where you want things to come from. So let me try to bring my thread down one more row. There we go. And I'm going to go through the bead. And actually, I want to recommend as you're working all these next steps, just maybe even work it with your finger inside the pouch so that you don't have the risk of sewing your pouch together as you stitch your button on. So it's up to you if you want to give the button height. I think in my case, I didn't feel like I needed to add height because it's going to just have a little loop coming around and under it. So just go ahead and go through from exiting from that center bead in the little star there. You go through the button, go through the other side of your button, and you can loop through the center bead. And up through your button. As it gets tighter, it gets a little trickier. And go through here. But it doesn't need to be super, super tight. So I can kind of see where I need to get behind the button here. I'm just going to get through that one bead, the same one. And if you look from the top, you'll have the viz you need to see that you got through it. Oops. It'll try to pull the top with it, but there we go. Maybe easier to get through the button first. And then just try to viz the bead there. And before I pull that through, I'm just going to make sure I didn't stitch through. Nope, everything's good there. Okay, so I'm going to go through the button one more time. I feel like that's pretty good. And from here, I'll make one last little trip through that bead. You can see it there. And let's go ahead and continue through the row. So I'm going to get through the bead that's next to it. And I'm just going to go ahead and head to the edge over here. Double check that one more time, making sure everything is not sewn together. Okay. So from here, somehow, if you've got enough thread to go ahead and just weave around, otherwise you could always weave in a new strand. But from here, the goal is to get this little pouch part to fold forward and maybe have a little loop coming out of the center of this star that connects it. And so the pouch will just kind of sit like that when it is connected and all sealed up. So I'm going to weave through going through the side here to get me to the back, for example. Now let's go through a few beads here. Again, double checking. From here on out, I'm going to double check I don't stitch my pouch closed by accident. So go ahead and just weave your way up. Aim for right about there. And there we go. So I'm exiting from the center star here. I've got my thread coming out of one of those side 3. I'm going to string 30 of the red beads, and it's up to you what color you'd like to use. But I'm just going to go ahead and string 30 of these red ones for making it nice and easy. There we go. There's 10. From here, I'm going to go through the 3 beads that make up the center part of that little star there. And so it'll give me a little loop. And I'm going to go ahead and go through all of those again. And when you get to this side, you can go through the center 3 beads again if you want and just reinforce the loop around, or if you want to just make a turn, you can always grab the threads that are running this way through and use them to turn. So either way is fine. I'm going to make 3 passes through this loop. There you go. So when you get to this side, let's head back into the work. I might go through some beads on this side. And aim your thread if you have enough left, otherwise weave in a new strand. But I'm going to weave my thread over to one of these little edges over here. Doesn't matter which side, just pick a side. And by edge, I mean, I'm going to try to be exiting from like right there, right where the edge of the pouch starts. So let's go through just a few more. All right, and so that's where I'm going to attach my little clutch. So from here, this can become a lot of things. So it can be a little gift pouch to give someone that's either an ornament or a gift tag. It can become a necklace. It can become a lot of different things. And so depending on how you intend to use it and what it's going to be for, you can decide what kind of little attachments to put on it. So if you wanted it to be a necklace exiting from one of these sides, I'm going to show you how to do a stitch that could become a chain. But in my case, I'm just going to make it a short little chain, almost like a little purse handle. And I'm going to use it as an ornament or a gift tag. But there's lots of different ways you could do it. So it could become a lot of things by also, for example, you could do what I'm going to show you exiting from the back here to make it hang from the center. And that could also be another great way to wear it and use it as an ornament. So either way, it's going to be kind of your style, what you'd like to do. But with your thread exiting from back here, to start creating a chain, string a pattern of beads. And I'm going to need to get out a few more of my yellow beads. I'm going to grab those really quick. And I'll share this in the pattern, but actually I'm going to need to get some more of the metallics as well. Pattern being up to you, but I thought I might just do a little set of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and go maybe 1, 2, 1. And so just heading back out from the same little pattern there of 3. So I did something like that. It's really up to you, whatever you'd like to do. And here goes my little loop. There we go. So feel free to make that as long as you would like it to be. And I'm just going to bring it over here. And so do you see the row we're exiting on this side? We're exiting from that spot there. Go ahead and go through this corresponding one on this side. So far you just have this little loop and it kind of hangs towards the back. So what I did from here is I'll just go down through the next bead here. And I'm going to take advantage of my little side beads to bring me to the front. And from here, it might be helpful to open your pouch just so you can get to the beads we want to get to. So I just went through these 2 side joiner beads, right? Now I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go through the next bead here, and then I'm going to make a turn to exit out from this bead. And that's going to put me here. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to string an equal number of beads with my pattern. So this is 3 of those metallic. So 1, 2, 3 metallic. And now I'll go through the next 3 yellow. And see, it makes a little join there on the side. Just like if you were creating a full-size purse, you would have it join a little bit on the side, front and back. So like that, see? And as we tighten this up, we're going to make a pass back through. You'll notice it gets a lot tighter. And then what I like to do, just to make the handle more robust and to make it, this will be especially helpful if you're making a full-length necklace. Give yourself places to turn so you can add thread. So to do that, pick up an extra set of this repeat, which is our little middle one. So like that, right? And skip those. And then just go through the 3 yellow. I chose yellow because it's nice and bright and easy to see what I'm doing. So you see it's making it a little thicker. And now I'll pick up my 3 metallic. And we'll go ahead and jump over those 3 metallic. We'll go through my 3 yellow ones. So we're having something like this happen here. See? Complete that all the way over to the other side here. All right, so you see I just kept doing that. And so I've got this cute little chain going, and it's nice and strong. And when I get to this side, I'll string the 3 metallics for this side. And again, easier if the pouch is open. But in this case, I want to go ahead and head through this one on this side. And head kind of in towards the work. So just like that. And so you see it'll secure that to that side. You will want to reinforce this, and the best way to get where you need to be is to now make a turn through here and come up through this one here. Go through this side and then head through this next bead here on the back. Make a turn, and that'll put you headed right back up through the chain. All right. So go ahead and reinforce your little chain. When you get to the other side, reinforce that, and then weave in and trim. And you've got a little miniature purse. So cute as a gift tag. I think this would be so nice for a friend that loves handbags. I think actually for me, as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, cute purse charm. And what I might put in this is a little air tag, because often I'll store a little air tag with me to help me find my bag when I put it down somewhere. So yeah, this could be a little pouch for something like that, or like one of those angel tokens just to give to somebody. And if you have one of those purses where you can just get the strap like right through it, otherwise maybe when you make this chain, pop a quick link on there or some kind of like little loop, or even like one of those big clips, something like that, and you can hook it to your purse. Little purse charm. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will be making a matching pair of earrings, so be on the lookout for that. I'm going to use the same pattern in a cute earring design that features the Jewel Loom earring looms. So that will be coming up next. There it is, all finished. I just wove in and finished up all of the little stitching on it. And so a little mini purse, and it is so cute. I hope you will love it, and I hope you will share variations that you create. If you visit the Jewel Loom Facebook group, there is a lot of inspiration there, and would love to see the inspiration you create when you make your little beaded pouch. Will you make a necklace, a gift tag, purse charm, anything that you think is going to be really, really cute? Please share also in the comments for this video what you thought. And I want to wish you happy beading.